What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are just joining us, we are working on a 2010 WRX. I've done a full 6-speed swap. Kind of went over this last video, but got all the turbo stuff from ETS mounted. We've got the next gen 6870, all the piping. We've got the 4-inch intercooler installed. I do have the Koyo rad installed with the factory fans, and I got the Torque Solutions upper and lower radiator hoses. Top this off, I've got the Perrin beauty plates with the Perrin tie downs for the alternator. And then today we will be working on remedying our steering rack situation. So this is the factory linkage for the 2010, well, I guess 2009 up to 2013. Anything outside the STI pretty much uses this linkage with the rubber isolator built into it. Anytime anybody swaps out the steering racks for like the STI racks, they also swap out the linkage to the STI ones because, as you see, they don't have that rubber isolator. So it gives you a much better positive feeling with the steering, and you just feel more connected with the road itself. So what I initially started out with is the STI linkage for the exact year that I've got, so pretty much 08 to 14. Actually has a brand new sticker. This is brand new. Ordered it from my local Subaru dealership. This did not fit, so keep in mind we do have the 2019 WRX FA steering rack, so it's the electronic power steering. Cradle is different. Again, it does not have the provision for the up pipe, so I had to modify and clearance that out earlier on, but when I tried to throw this in there, it did not fit. It was too short. So I did purchase the VA, so same 2019 STI linkage. Test fitted this and it fits perfect. So if we dig a little bit deeper, kind of line these up, these 2 points here, you can see there's a slight length difference. This gave us the extra clearance that we need to fit that properly. So the one that does not fit, that's the part number. 34170 FG011. That's for the 2008 to 2013. And then this one is the correct part number, 34170 VA030. That's for the VA bodies. Basically, this gives us that little length difference that we need. So I'll go ahead and get this installed, get that wrapped up, tighten both of these up. One thing that we are going to have to work with that's a little bit different is the actual mounting of the ears. So you can see the rotation is a little bit different. We've got the notch here, the notch here, but these ones are lined up properly for that. So I'm not sure which end I'm going to have to adjust, if it's the steering rack or the steering wheel. That really depends on the actual steering angle, which I don't know if that's built into the rack or the clock spring. I have a feeling it's probably going to be in the steering wheel. So we just want to make sure that we get that lined up properly and kind of work on that later down the road. I also don't know how that's going to work out, being that I'm running a standalone ECU, the M-Tron. The factory ECU, I know you could plug in OBD and identify what that steering angle is. I don't know if I'll have a display on the actual M-Tron to show me that angle. That's something we're going to have to work on later down the road. So let's get this installed and get this wrapped up. Alright, so now that I've got the steering rack situated, let's go ahead and start working on those inner tie rods, get those shortened up a bit so that way I get my range of motion back that I need for a proper alignment. Alright, so we're going to remove the inner and outer tie rod. I don't think I have this tight. Nope, finger tight. So get this unscrewed. Now I'll probably have to cut both of these because this is maxed out and this just needs to keep going. So I'm going to measure the inside of the outer tie rod and see if I in fact do need to cut the inner. It would be awesome if I just need to cut the outer and not the inner. Yeah, so I've got a little bit of room. I could probably just start cutting the outer and be good. Yeah. So let's start there. Nice. So basically cut a 1/2 inch off here, and it gave us a little bit of room here. So let's see what this looks like before calling it good. I'm gonna go check the steering wheel position. May need to cut some more. May need to cut some more, but quite honestly, we should probably get the steering wheel position where it needs to be first and then cut, so that way I know which direction to go. So let's put this on hold, and we will continue on the ETS fitment, see if we can get anywhere with that. Once I get the ECU wired up and on, I'll be able to verify the steering wheel angle and then get this where it needs to be. We're gonna try to get some fitment dialed in on the ETS kit. I'm gonna try clocking the turbo a little bit different so I can see if I can get the downpipe to fit. Just wanna make sure that it's not an install error on my part. I'm gonna try to pull this out a little bit and create some clearance for that headlight issue that I had. Still missing the relocation brackets for the windshield washer tank, but we'll see if I can get those. Yeah, that's a lot of clearance issues. This needs to go down like a full inch. And we can't do that because it's going to hit everything else. It's so weird. I can't imagine this pipe is much different than the STI. Pretty much where it needs to be. Yeah, look at that. That's too much. And it's already up against that, so there's no way I can move this with this much of a gap, because it would have to come like over here, and even then it's still like way off. So I don't know. Ideally, I would like to run this kind of like all the other kits and come down here and go on the inside of the frame rail. That way I don't have any issues here. I don't have to relocate this. The fill neck can go back here, and this basically just sits right here. I can move this line out of the way and then have it bolt to the frame rail. So that way it's just more rigid, and then kind of come in through here and in between everything. So that way it's just not sitting up so high. I kind of like that idea, but that's going to be a lot of modification. So I'm going to reach back out to ETS. They've been kind enough to try to walk me through some of these issues that I'm having. Let's go ahead and try clocking the turbo any way that we can to get the downpipe to mate up to the catback, and then we'll give them that feedback also. Alright, so catback, we've got the NVIDIA Q300. We've got that all bolted up in factory hangers. And then we've got the bottom section of the ETS downpipe with the top disconnected. I've got it pretty much bolted here to the factory bracket. And you can see, I mean, it's pretty close to this mount here, so I don't think it could go back any further. And I still have a pretty good sized gap here. So I mean, theoretically I could like clamp this down and pull the entire exhaust forward, but it puts a lot of stress on that flex joint there. So I'll reach out to ETS and see if that's how it's supposed to be. I'm not sure what's going on there. But let's go ahead and get the top section of the downpipe installed and see where we're at. Alright, so we've got it loosely up on the turbo. You can see there's pretty good clearance to the AC line now. Back here, the angle is off. It's almost like this bracket is not welded in the right direction, because if it was pushed back that full inch, or whatever that difference is, I feel like this would line up properly. So it makes you think, like, is this bracket bent? But it looks perfectly fine and straight. I mean, like, this is straight. It's pretty much all the way back, so it's not like we could move that anymore. I'm gonna see if I can move this to the back side just to see what that looks like fitment wise. I am so confused. So I've got this pretty much, it closed the gap. When I bolt this to the back side, which we all know is wrong, it closes that gap and it can bolt right up fine. So I've got it there temporarily, and ironically the downpipe fits. It's all bolted up. I don't have the wastegate in there yet, so I don't even know if that'll fit, but I mean, it looks decent. It's bolted up. On to the other issues. So I've got the downpipe all bolted up. This is somewhat tight, but allows for a little bit of movement. And there's a little clearance here. Like, I can't fit my finger in there. So I've got that bolted up. If I move it to all the way to the center of the vehicle, there's like no clearance there. If I push it all the way outwards, it creates the clearance, and we have this issue. So, I mean, that is like extremely close to the ABS module, which doesn't make sense. I've got this bolt removed just for fitment purposes, but if I hold it up there, like, we're way off here. So that tells me this turbo needs to be clocked like this, which the exhaust won't fit. So I have no idea what is required. I mean, I can put the coupler on here and I'll show you how far away or how close we are. I mean, there's no way. Like, there's no way. The only way that I could get this to fit, this is like the only way that this would fit, and that obviously is not going to work. So theoretically, we could use like a straight coupler here, and then just use the leg of the intake to kind of create our own. I don't mind, you know, fabbing up my own intake, but I just need everything else to fit. I mean, I don't understand. Something is wrong here. So if I kind of pivot the turbo to fit the intake pipe or the inlet piping, then the exhaust doesn't fit. So just a little bit of frustration here. All right, so basically I got the top all fitting the way I think it's supposed to. So this looks like it's a good angle. It bolts up pretty square here. I mean, there's a little bit of bending here, but that's minimum. This joint is pretty well where it needs to be. I've got decent clearance between here, and then the coupler is angled like what I believe it's supposed to. I've got clearance everywhere. I mean, the intake pipe goes right down there with a small leg here. I think that's how it's supposed to fit, right? So everything looks somewhat decent. I've got that bolted up. It's pretty much in the middle, and I think I would have enough clearance for the wastegate. Underside, I've got that still bolted up there. I've got the bracket on the back side, even though that's wrong. And here's the mismatch. I've got this kind of pivoted out to create some clearance up there. If I move it in, it gets the pipe much closer. But then look at the difference here. That is clearly wrong. So, I mean, I don't know. The angle itself is not where it needs to be. It's pretty close, but it's super close to the axle too, which honestly is a no-go. So ideally, if I were to pivot this outwards, it creates the clearance up there. There would be a handful of room for the wastegate, and I could just kind of pivot this arm like to come out. So pivot it from right here, turn it that way, and get that to align. So that would be a new joint, a new V-band. I would probably cut this bracket off and then re-weld it to fit properly. So honestly, I don't know. Maybe I have this way wrong, but that's what I think it would need to fit properly.